Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar, Job Changes by Adam Schmidt from our Build Your Career webinar series. My name is Scott Levine, and I'm the membership manager here at the IEEE Computer Society. Each month, we host a webinar on vital business skills that will help you excel at your current job and be helpful throughout your career. Topics covered will include communication skills, verbal and written, body language, interview tips, and confidence building, to name a few. Before we get started, I'd like to address some housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded. You will receive an email tomorrow, which will include a copy of the slides and the recording. You can ask any questions in the Q&A box you see on your screen. If possible, please reference the slide your question refers to. Adam will answer as many questions as he can following the presentation. Landing a new job is an exciting endeavor that can be filled with plenty of learning experience and challenges. With that being said, the IEEE Computer Society is here to serve as your career guide and keep you in the loop technologically as you progress through this new path. Join professionals from across the globe and build a network with our technical communities, local chapters, and conferences. Since building your career is an ongoing process, we've created various resources to ensure you're up to date, such as our Tech News blog. Our blog is constantly shares firsthand lessons learned and advice written by computing professionals. More information will be shared after the webinar, but you can always learn more at computer.org. Circling back to today's topic, just landing a new job or nearly there, congratulations. Starting a new job comes with much excitement, but also some challenges. With each new job, there seems to be endless possibilities, but perhaps some butterflies about this new chapter in your career. This webinar is designed to help you feel more confident and grounded as you prepare for a new role. And as mentioned, joining us today is Adam Schmidt, a professional facilitator, trainer, and leadership coach with 20 years of leadership and consulting experience. Throughout his career, people development has been a passion for Adam, has an exceptional ability to guide others to overcome real and perceived obstacles. Adam is an International Coaching Federation Master Certified Coach. His coaching style is shaped by the fundamentals of the International Coaching Federation professional coaching: powerful questioning, authentic listening, accountability, and being fully present for all of his clients. His capability to translate his clients' diverse work and personal experiences into tangible resources for personal and professional growth allow him to succeed with individuals from varied backgrounds and professions. Adam, thank you for joining us again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate the very kind welcome. It's great to be with you all again. You know, we've spent a lot of time in these webinars talking about different things that can impact you in your day-to-day job. We've talked about things like performance management, project management. We've talked about things like emotional intelligence, how to navigate, how to manage up is one of the conversations that we've had before. But today we're going to talk about what happens when it's time to shift opportunities. It's time to change jobs. This morning I was trying to impress my 5-year-old with job change jokes, knowing that this was coming. She was not impressed with this joke, but I will share it with you. And it goes a little like this. 007 recently changed jobs after he was finished with his career as a spy. He transitioned to a contractor, and he did that because he was already licensed and bonded. That's right, 007, already licensed and bonded. So with that as my opening salvo with a joke that even a 5-year-old didn't find that funny, let's talk a little bit about job changes and how it impacts choosing your career. What'll help me a lot today is understanding who is in the audience. It's a little bit hard to wrap my head around who is with us today. So if you could just finish this survey or just do a quick click and let me know, where are you in your career? Are you student, entry level, team lead, kind of top to bottom there, maybe more early in your career, get towards the bottom, towards the end of your career, in that director C-suite space. Just let me know where you are in this survey so that we can tailor some of our comments today and make sure that you get the best information I can out to you. Thanks so much. About half have completed. I'll give you a few more seconds to do that. No matter where we are in our career, we're always going through the potential for a job change. Sometimes they sneak up on us. We'll talk about the different reasons why we go through job changes in just a minute. Let's take a look at some of the results. Excellent. Awesome. Oh, this is a beautiful bell curve here for today. So we've got some entry level, some team leads kind of in that early mid portion of our career, some managers maybe in the strike zone of their career, and then a couple director and C-suite. So perfect balance. Thanks so much for taking the time to do that. That'll help me kind of shape our comments. No students or graduate students with us today, or at least that responded. So we can kind of talk turkey today about real job changes. Here are some of the topics that we'll cover today. We want to think about job changes as an opportunity, not a threat. We'll reflect on this idea of starting a new job and how it's very exciting, but it also does have some challenges. And how do we want to position ourselves as we start a new job to get the most out of our experience and to make sure that we're presenting ourselves in a way that we can really be proud of, that's authentic, in a way that brings with us not only who we were, but who we want to become. And we'll talk a little bit more about how when we show up for a new job, it's not a story about where we've been, it's a story about where we're going. So we'll talk about things like preparation, what comes before the big day. Some of these will be pretty tactical recommendations that you may have already kind of had just through common sense, but we'll also talk about some things, some tips and tricks that might help you really navigate those first few weeks of a new job and again, get the most out of them and be your best self. And then finally, an experience, experience your first day, your first week, your first few months without overdoing it. How do we manage not just our first day, but beyond in those first 60, 90 crucial days in a new job as we go through this change and want to put our best foot forward? So we'll talk about job changes, reflect a little bit, some preparation, and some experience. Lots of reasons for changing jobs. And as we go through this, I'd encourage you, if you're here today, especially in that manager, team leader role, even if you're not in the middle of a job change or about to go through one, I wanted to discuss a little bit about the reasons that I most commonly hear as a career coach why I'm leaving. And these are intended just to give you a little bit of a framework to kind of assess if something feels off in my current opportunity, why would I be thinking about a job change? It's most important that before we go through a job change, we're able to articulate and clearly articulate to ourselves and others, this is why I'm making this change. The most dangerous moves we make are when we're not sure what we're looking for, maybe what we're trying to get away from or what we're trying to step up to. And so let's just walk through a few of these. Some of them pretty simple, things like better pay and benefits, right? Promises of things like higher salary, better 401k, better health plan, things like that. Career advancement could be a step up. Perhaps another firm is offering a senior associate position and your current firm's only offering associate positions at the moment. So we can think about these as growth opportunities. There might be better work-life balance. This is one that's come up a lot for me as a career coach lately, especially in terms of leaving opportunities that are now requiring them to go back to the office, looking for those remote opportunities where, at least for some folks, they feel that that is a better experience for them professionally to work primarily from either a home office or at least work remotely in multiple different locations. More interesting work, just the fact that your work might be getting a little bit stale and you're ready to try something new, maybe a different aspect. So for example, if you've been working in the field I'll use the one that I know the most about in leader development. Let's say you've been a a coach or a trainer or a facilitator. Maybe you're looking to take on that work more as a manager and act as the contracting officer for those functions within a large firm. Same field, but a different perspective on how you work in that space. Could be more interesting to try a new perspective. Workplace culture, another one that I hear quite a bit. The idea here is that not all cultures work for everyone. And in fact, not all companies, I should say that it's very difficult for us to assess that that company has a bad culture or that company has a good culture. Different cultures work for different people. So I'd encourage you to reflect on this idea of, do I fit here? How do I interact with my colleagues? What opportunities are provided for me here in terms of growth in the culture? Geographical reasons. Some people switch jobs to move to a different city, right? Might have to move for a different school district for your children, better weather, different climate. Maybe you're a big skier and you want to move out west so you're closer to the mountains, whatever the case might be. And so we can take those opportunities into account too. Just the idea that sometimes we just need to move. And finally, burnout. And this is something that I saw quite a bit of in the very early portions of the pandemic, where those who were already burned out pre-pandemic finally had a moment in the very early portion of the pandemic to say, this is not the life I want to lead, and I'm going to change jobs where I can find more balance and even fulfillment in my professional space, even if that means taking a step back. There are 4 big questions that I'll offer you to jot down that kind of summarize the 7 or 8 different things I've listed here as some of the primary reasons I hear in this space. And the 4 questions are this: am I happy with what I'm doing? Can I get paid for what I'm doing? Is what I'm doing a contribution to the community? And do I love what I do? So if we take those 4 questions, which are leveraged off of a model called Ikigai, something that I've covered in a previous webinar with this group, the Ikigai model talks about our reason for being. And if the answer to those 4 questions is yes, the model argues that we're in a pretty good place. I like what I do, I'm good at what I do, I'm getting paid for what I do, and it's a contribution to my community or my society. 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, when I have a client that says I'm unhappy at work, we start with those questions and we find out which one is out of whack. It's okay to leave an opportunity if 3 of those 4 are checked, but maybe you feel like, you know what, it's been years and I'm just not getting a raise and it's time to earn more money, or it's time to be compensated fairly for what I do. That's a valid reason. Maybe you are getting paid fine, you love what you do, and you're good at what you do, but you don't feel like what you're doing is contributing to your community in any way. It's okay to make a job change based solely off of that. So again, encourage you to kind of reflect on those 4 questions. Do I love what I'm doing? Am I good at what I'm doing? Am I getting paid for what I'm doing? And is this a contribution to my community at any level? That could be, doesn't need to be, contributing to the global greater good. It could be, am I contributing to Main Street, USA? Am I contributing to my very local community in whatever I'm doing? So you can kind of gauge what impact you want to have. So I encourage you to reflect on those 4 questions to help you begin to articulate what might be showing up as the initial reasons for a job change that could be coming. So no matter your reasons, this is an opportunity, not a danger, right? We're talking about things like change of pace here, how a new job can bring in a fresh start. We've, in fact, looking at the who's here today, my guess is that all of us have had that feeling of a fresh job start. New people, a new pencil, a new notebook, all these little things kind of contribute to an idea of a new me, a new authenticity to reinvigorate my passion for the work, and potentially even do things like reignite our motivation or our innovation to say, I'm bringing myself wholly to this new position. This is about personal growth. It can provide new challenges and opportunities. Maybe it's a new certification that you'll seek with a new job, or a new challenge, or a new degree that you have to seek in order to get a different opportunity. And of course, more holistically, our life experience. These can be contributory towards opportunities about things like new cultures, working with new people, gaining new experiences, and just making new interpersonal relationships that provide tremendous value. So as we think about new opportunities, it can be absolutely scary, right? There's no reason to say that that's not true, or we might have that cousin or uncle that says it's no big deal, it's just a new job, whatever the language might be that goes along with it. It's okay to say no, this is a big deal. I don't change jobs that often, and for me this feels a little bit scary. That's totally fine, and being anxious about a new opportunity is normal and lovely. But what we want to do is make sure we're framed in a way by that first day when we step through the door that says, I'm here to grow, even if that growth is through tough lessons, through finding opportunities that don't work for us. I had a client not 3 weeks ago, a little more than that, I guess about 4 weeks ago, that transitioned from a mid-sized consulting firm to their alleged dream job. And I say alleged because the punchline here is that it didn't work out, and they only stayed at this larger firm for about 8 months. The culture was one that they did not align with. The culture was one of what we might call sort of very type A, very aggressive, very achievement oriented, very little consensus building, top down hierarchy, all the things that some of us might cringe at and say, that wouldn't be for me either. And so this individual only lasted 8 months at that larger firm, but the growth they experienced from that got them the job that they really wanted just 8 months later. It was, call it a stepping stone, sort of a wobbly stone they had to get over to the other side of this river so that they could have a better change of pace, an opportunity to grow personally, and a better life experience. So that fear of change is a natural human response, but it's important to recognize that change can bring about new opportunities and growth. There is rarely a failure in job change selection. If you make a switch to a new opportunity and it doesn't work, that's okay. It's an opportunity for us to say, what have I learned about what I don't want to do here? Appreciating the things that we don't want to welcome into our professional life is just as powerful, if not even more powerful, as appreciating the things that we do want in our professional life. If you're struggling a little bit about, I'm not sure what my next move looks like, or I'm not sure what a job change might even look for me, or maybe you're thinking, oh, I wouldn't want to really do that for another year or two, that's totally fine. But we might want to start making a list of things that I definitely don't want to do. That's a little bit easier sometimes, than putting ourselves in a position of saying, well, I need to figure out what I'm going to do, and I'm going to write down my perfect job. That can be tough and often requires the support of someone like a career coach to help you kind of think through things like values and norms and the type of people you want to surround yourself with, the type of culture you want to be engaged with. Those can be a little bit tougher. Invite you to actually think about the other side of the coin and say, what don't I want? What are the things that I know that if I showed up on the first day and I saw, I would say, oh, this has been a mistake. I'm ready to move on. Let's take a look at our next slide here. Preparation, just moving a little bit into some of the meat, of our discussion today about getting ready for that new opportunity. So plan, prepare, and perform. We're planning for this job change. We're going to prepare for our job change, then perform when we get there. Here's a couple simple things you can do. Some of these might be common sense. I'll try to color them in a little bit to give you some tips and tricks. Research the company. Learn as much as you can about their culture's value and mission. Now, any of us who work for organizations can usually tell us something like, yeah, that's what the website says, but it's not exactly how it works. That's okay. We want to understand the external face, the impression that we get from an organization that we're about to join. Maybe it's on their social media. Maybe we want to follow them on things like Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn to appreciate what sort of content and energy is this firm putting out. So whether it's that, things like blog posts, news articles, get a sense of what face are they putting to their outward, either potential customers, potential clients, whatever the organization's focus might be. I'll highlight here that there can be a huge opportunity to prepare yourself in understanding the org structure of a firm before you go to it. Now, oftentimes these aren't explicitly available on a company's website, but we can begin to put things together by looking at typically a website will have something like about or leadership or staff, and we begin to putting faces and names to positions. Who's the CEO? Who's the CTO? Who is going to be my boss's boss's boss? Who's going to be my boss's boss? Who's going to be my boss? Maybe if you're lucky enough, there's a little bit on there. And there's so much out there now that we're able to really look into who people are, right? Okay, so we understand who the CEO is. Does the CEO do a blog? Does the CEO put out newsletters? Did the CEO put a forward commentary in last year's annual report? We can begin to use that opportunity, that research as a way to begin building a picture of what we're walking into. It might just be a sketch. I mentioned my 5-year-old before. It might just be kind of, the door to the house and a crooked roof, but just enough to say, I've got a little bit of an idea. When we walk in and we hear a couple names that we recognize, we can say, oh yeah, I can picture that person. They're the chief technology officer. I'd be interested to get to know them a little more. Network with current employees. So with the power of LinkedIn, an instrument that I encourage all of you to be a part of if you're not yet already, if possible, reach out to employees who work at the company to appreciate their experience. You'd be amazed at how much people are willing to share and be in mentorship mode. I'm very convinced that people in the professional space, by and large, are excited to be in service to others. And this is no exception. Even before you start a new job, to simply express interest in talking can be enough sometimes. You might get a response that says something like, Jane, welcome, glad you're here. I'm really busy right now, so I'll just see you when you get started, but thanks for reaching out. That can be just enough, because now you've got a little bit of a foothold so that when you meet Johnny or Jane on your first day, you can say, oh yeah, thanks for reaching out. I'm glad we're in touch. Let's go grab coffee and talk a little bit about your experience here. It's okay to reach out, show a little bit of motivation and inspiration to say, I want to get to know the people that are working here. A little bit of a checklist never hurts. The first day on the job can be a nerve-wracking time. We want to remember all the simple things. We're going to need our ID card for things like benefits and our paperwork that they send you in advance. Maybe it's an application for employment or some of those tax forms we have to sign. I know this is a very simple and hyper-tactical thing to mention today, but it can be helpful just to have a little bit of a to-do list that morning before you head into your new job, or maybe even more contemporary, before you log in on the computer that maybe has been FedExed to you for that first time and that first day, to say, okay, I'm here and I'm ready to go. Showing up prepared goes a long way to making a great first impression, as opposed to, oh, I don't know where my driver's license is. Can you please hold on? Or, oh, no, I didn't get that paperwork. Or, oh, the PDF won't download, or my MS Word won't open. Whatever challenges we might run into, we want to try to mitigate before that first day. It'll only make you more anxious and run the risk of offering an impression that you don't want to send. So again, it's normal to feel a mix of excitement and nervousness when starting a new job. By preparing in advance, you can minimize the stress and make a smooth transition. The opportunity that exists here is the really first chance to bring an authentic picture of who you are, someone who's prepared, knowledgeable, engaged, and ready to begin the work that you've been hired for. I couldn't help but bring this chart to today's discussion. It's one that I use a lot with clients. And the concept here is we need to appreciate that in the early portion of our tenure at any organization, we will be what's called value consumed, meaning we are not adding value right away. On the first day, we are taking time away from people. How do you do that? Where do I park? Where is the bathroom? How does this work? What's that person's name again? All these natural and absolutely fine questions that kind of come along with starting a new job. It's important that we walk in with the frame that we are not expected to produce right away, to go in on day one and change the world. In fact, the averages, and this I want to give credit to this chart from a book called The First 90 Days from a gentleman named Bill Watkins. I highly recommend that read if you're really focused in the space and ready to get into the details. Watkins argues that it takes us about 3 months, and from his data collection, that's about the point, about 90 days for us to transition from a value consumer to a value adder or a value producer. And it takes another 3 months, that 6-month mark, to what's called a break even or net zero contribution, meaning by that point, about 6 months in, those who we might have had to impose on in our first 90 days now see the value they're getting back and say, this is great. John is ready to go. Jane is ready to go with this new opportunity. It's not an explicit thing, right? People don't have a meeting at 6 months in and say, are we at the break-even point? That's typically not what happens. It's a very natural occurrence, a cultural occurrence where people say, yeah, of course we had to invest in him, but about 3 months in, he's kind of off and running, and now she's doing great. So really, really worthy investment and a great hire, great decision. So we want to think about this idea that value consumed is totally fine, knowing that about 3 months in, we do want to start feeling that value produced, and by about 6 months in, be considered a net contribution of zero, meaning we've balanced the books from the debt we created when we first started to the things that we are now producing in months 4, 5, and 6 as we go into a new opportunity. Bottom line, be brave about those first 90 days. It's okay to feel like you're asking a lot of questions. Towards months 3, 4, 5, 6, we do want to see that transition to more confident offering in new positions. Let's stay focused here on the first few weeks. We talked about that first day, simple things like being prepared, doing a little research before you show up, things like that. But here we go with the first few weeks. Now we're moving further into our experience in our new job. Be open-minded, a willingness to adapt. I mentioned before, this is a very important point from today. When we show up to a new job, we are bringing our experiences from the past, but not necessarily our behavior and culture from the past. We have our knowledge and experiences that we're bringing forward. That's probably why we were hired. Maybe you were a firefighter in the next town over, and now you've got a new firefighting job, or you became the fire chief, whatever it might be. And you want to bring that with you. But we want to honor the fact that we are in a new place, and we're going to have to adapt to things like new ways of working, new ideas, new perspectives, maybe new ways of management and managing up. We have to be ready to accept those things, not imposing what we've learned in the past, and staying away from what I call the trap of legacy, which means you hear things, and no doubt that almost everyone on the call has either said something like this or heard someone say it. Well, at my old job, we used to just do it like this, and it was better. That is not really interesting and not really important to whoever you're sharing it with, especially in the first few weeks, right? We want to stay open-minded, keep our concerns, complaints to ourselves, let things unfold in a way that'll let us appreciate the culture that's being offered to us. Learn the norms and expectations. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a slide or two, about how to notice norms and some of the things that can be hidden sometimes. But we want to observe the behavior of others and ask questions to understand what's expected of you within the company. We want to ask questions like, what's the real difference between a lead associate and a principal here at KPMG? Well, what's the difference between a senior manager and a manager here at Deloitte? What's the real distinction? Because sometimes those descriptions that we read on places like Glassdoor and the real world are very, very different. So I want to begin to appreciate, what are we actually dealing with? When I talk to a vice president, how upward am I really looking and acting? When I talk to an associate, how downward, so quote unquote, or so to speak, am I looking? Communicate. Ask our coworkers and manager for clarification on aspects. This goes into that consuming value. It can be so hard for us to want to do this. No doubt everyone on this call, even if you've taken the inspirational step today to just join a conversation on job changes. So clearly you're focused on this space. So you might struggle less than others, but it's okay to ask questions, to know that you're going to be consuming value for some times. And by the way, know that any mature and reasonable organization will appreciate that too. They'll go, yeah, Mike just doesn't know yet. We've got to take our time and talk to him about how we do proposals here at this company, how we seek to learn new business, what our business development attitude is. It's okay to communicate and ask questions. Simple things like participating in company events go a long way. Even if it's your first week and it's the annual company barbecue and you go, I don't know anybody, go for a few minutes. Go and introduce yourself to just a couple people. Say hello, be a presence, be present for them so that they begin to appreciate who you are and what you can offer. A flexibility. This goes hand in hand with the first comment about being open-minded, a willingness to take on new tasks. As a new employee, we want to appreciate what is being offered to us in terms of the level of work that we're doing. Sometimes we can get to a new job and they'll say something like, well, one of your tasks is to clean off everyone's sneakers as they walk into the building. And you say, what? I've never done that in my life. I just don't feel like that's part of my job description. That's part of a discussion between you and your new manager. It's not a moment to either complain or go back and argue that you're somehow better than that, or argue that you are above that in any way. We want to be flexible and respectful at the same time to make sure that we can communicate that this wasn't our expectation, but we're happy to engage at this point. My guess is that in my experiences with clients, most of those times, those smaller items sort of work themselves out. Companies learn who you are, learn what you offer, and help you settle into a new space. Showing respect and enthusiasm, I'll just bundle these together to move our conversation forward. But treating our coworkers with respect, this is an obvious one. Making sure we have a positive attitude about the company culture. We don't want to go into a place and say, oh my gosh, I'm really worried because I saw these terrible comments on Glassdoor about how they treat their consultants or how they treat their managers. What do you guys know about that? This is not the moment to do that, right? That's a conversation, if ever to have, much, much later in your tenure once you've built some trusted relationships and can share maybe things that you've both seen. Show enthusiasm around demonstrating your excitement for the company and its culture by actively participating in activities and initiatives. So again, the opportunity to say, I'm here, I'm ready to be involved, and I'm ready to take on the tasks that you offer me. These are all things we want to focus on just in those first few weeks. I wanted to take a moment and talk about things like norms and patterns of behavior. There's a little bit of iceberg thinking around this. I'm sure many of you have seen that sort of famous poster or famous picture around how we only see roughly the top third of the iceberg. It's not very different when it comes to company culture. This is the culture triangle, again, actually, that Bill Watkins offers in his book, The First 90 Days. He talks about how a lot of these symbols and language are visible, and a lot of things that are hidden, like fundamental assumptions and values. And we'll just talk about these briefly. So symbols and language, things like, these are things that you might find on the website, things like how we make presentations, things like what our values are explicitly, meaning, our company's values are personal courage, leadership, and courage, or something like that, and we can see those things. They're very explicit. Symbols that might go into company culture are things like, do they all wear pins? Do they all wear badges? Do different levels of people have different badges? Long time ago, I shouldn't say a long time ago, but even just 20 or 30 years ago, senior executives might have certain things, certain, cufflinks or something like that you'd be able to see a symbol that speaks to company culture. And we'll also be able to see some of the norms and patterns of behavior. We could see some of those. How do people act in meetings? How do people interact with one another? What are the norms when it comes to where people sit in meeting rooms? What are the norms and patterns when it comes to setting up conference calls? All these things can be intuited by what we see. But there's several things that are hidden within a company culture that will simply take time to work through. Some of these things like fundamental assumptions and values, right? How do we know what is actually happening in an organization? It takes time. It takes questions and a keen eye to be assessing what's happening around us and the people around us. You know, a fundamental assumption that might not be explicit would be, well, no one really says this, but don't bother the boss on Wednesday mornings. Or, you know, no one is really going to tell you this, but never ever talk to Jane without talking to Jack first. There's sort of these things that we need to just learn with experience, and those are hidden. I'd encourage you all to begin thinking about company cultures in this structure: symbols and language, norms and patterns, fundamental assumptions and values. And as you even reflect on your own current organization, what are some of the things that you know are visible, but are sort of secrets that no one really says out loud, but everybody knows? Those are the kinds of things that you can begin to look for when you enter a new organization: the visible and the hidden aspects of company culture. How do we assess culture? When we think about, well, okay, Adam, you've told me that culture is not really good or bad. It's dependent on, will I make a fit? And I've got to, you know, kind of go in there and feel things out. But how do I go about that? Here's a couple things just to keep your eye on that'll begin telling us a little bit about what the culture is as an organization. These are the components of culture, if you will. How do people get support for critical initiatives? Some larger companies have what they call executive champions. And before you so much as broach a new idea within an organization, you have to have an executive champion, a senior member of the organization that has joined you and said, yes, this is a good idea. Adam's on the right track here. I support this. How are meetings done? Are they filled with dialogue? Are they quiet? Are they public forums for complaints? Are they public forums to develop formal agreements? How are meetings run? In execution, how do people get stuff done around here? Do they email it to each other? Do they let each other know they're done? Is there some sort of board that says when tasks are complete? Is it an IT department where tickets might be scrolling across a board and, you know, it's green if it's done, red if it's still in operation or still in implementation? How do they handle conflict? Can people talk openly about issues, or do we kind of avoid the fact that Jane's been you know, really great lately, and Johnny's been nothing but rude to her? How do they work that out? Is there company aspects, or excuse me, company support they can seek out to take care of that conflict without fear of retribution? What does that look like within a company? Recognition. How does this company promote its all-stars? How do they visibly and vocally applaud? And how do they reprimand the other side of that coin? Do they do that in public? Do they do that in private? How do they take on the fact that sometimes we have to have difficult conversations? And finally, ends versus means. Are there any restrictions on how you achieve results? How does the company like to get things done? Are you given a lot of leash to do what you want, and it's kind of one of those, Mark, just get the job done, do what you got to do? Or is it, hey, come on, let's work together. Come in, if you have challenges, let's talk about it. Maybe we can find a new solution. What side of the fence are they sitting on in the ends versus the means? Does the company have a well-defined, well-communicated set of values, right, that is reinforced through positive incentives? How do they step in to be what they say they are? All these aspects, simple things like meetings, more complicated things like influence, noticing how we recognize, noticing how conflict is solved, all contribute to a company culture. I'd encourage you all not only to think about this in terms of how to do this when you get to a new job, but if you feel like something's off about your culture now, maybe this list of items can help you bring some language to what are the things that are bothering me about the culture that I'm in now, so that you can better articulate it, and most importantly, be able to seek it out in a new opportunity. You know, I want a culture that handles conflict right up front, I want a culture that recognizes success. I want a culture that has collaborative meetings. This is a great way to begin explaining your authenticity, especially in things like job interviews, where they inevitably will ask something along the lines of, tell us about your work environment that you really appreciate, or what work environment do you thrive in? This is what they're asking there is culture. What culture do you operate within? We can talk about things like influence meetings, conflict, and recognition in those spaces. Connecting with peers. Just wanted to mention that there are a few things more valuable when starting a new job and going through a job change than connecting with your peers. If we neglect what's called horizontal relationships and spend too much time trying to impress our boss, that can be a mistake on our part, because we have then lost our base. We've lost the folks to our left and right who are going to take care of us, who are going to look out for us, who are going to help us avoid making key mistakes. Here's some very simple ideas. I won't go through them line by line here, but being approachable, asking good questions. As I say, I try to work this in almost every one of my webinars with this group. Good questions always start with what and how, right? Gives our respondent, it's called an open question, gives our respondent more space to reply. Be a good listener, take the initiative. We want to pay attention when someone is speaking with us and take the opportunity to join them in an initiative, even if it doesn't sound exactly spot on for us. We can be respectful, right? Treating our coworkers with respect and professionalism goes a huge way. I'm sure all of us in this room can imagine sometime that we didn't feel like we were respected. Especially we can remember if we don't feel like we were respected, or a new employee wasn't respecting the culture that we've created there in an organization, they immediately sort of stick out to us and say, I'm not sure how this is going to go for Johnny. He's really taking a pretty strong tone with the boss, or a really strong tone with his peers right out of the gate. So connecting with our peers, not neglecting those horizontal relationships. Let's talk about new bosses real quick. Lots to unpack here, and I'll hit the high points. As much as we focus on our peers, we also want to focus on those vertical relationships. When we meet our boss for the first time, we want to be proactive about introducing ourselves, maybe even providing that resume if they don't have it yet. Provide a summary of what you think your responsibilities are. This is what I think I'm going to be working on. Can you help clarify that? Clarify those expectations, right? Appreciate from day one from your boss, what do you hope to see from me? We can even ask them, we have that chart in our mind now, right? That value consumed, value added. It's, boss, what do you expect from me in the first 90 days? What do you hope to see from me in the first 6 months? Those are wonderful questions. Notice they both started with what or how. We can hear from our manager what is expected of us. We can get an impression of how quickly they want to see us develop, and therefore the choices we need to make as a new employee. Again, notice the theme here, right? Being open-minded, being open to change, never saying things like, well, that's not how my old boss did it. Even if it's a good comparison to say, oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this. My old boss never did this. No reason to share that at this point, right? We're talking to our new boss. We only care about what is the road ahead. The road behind is interesting at some point, but certainly not important right now. No surprises here, but in the last bullet, don't be a blatant suck up, right? A good leader usually knows the difference between sucking up, right, little brown nosing, and basic courtesy and competence. So all we need to do is provide courtesy. All we need to do is be professional, and we'll earn the respect of our manager in due course. We can learn about our manager too. We talked a little bit about that before in our research and our preparation for day one. Check out their LinkedIn profile, right? Social media does wonders for us to learn about people before we actually meet them face to face. Maybe we can hear about their leadership style. Have they posted about that somewhere, or made a video about that somewhere? Ask questions about their interests, hobbies, and families when you finally meet them. We want to make sure the boss knows that we see them as a whole person, right? We see our manager, our director, our CEO, whoever it is, as a whole person, not just as, you're my boss, tell me what to do, right? So focusing on both this vertical and horizontal relationship. I wanted to highlight what's called the virtuous cycle versus the vicious cycle. These are the kind of spirals that we can get ourselves in when starting out in a new organization. And I'll focus your attention first on the left-hand side of this slide, which are called vicious cycles, the things we want to avoid. When we get started and we perform poorly, or we don't take some of the recommendations that we've been through today, we might have inadequate learning. We haven't taken the time to get to know where we are. We might have ineffective relationship building. We don't take the time to get to know our peers or our boss. And of course, that lands us in this cycle, right, of bad decisions, losing credibility in the organization, and a lack of supported alliances. If we don't have those, we're going to get resistance within a new job. Resistance might look like, no, we're not going to do the thing the new guy wants to do. No, we're not going to do the thing the new girl said we should do. These are vicious cycles that are very, very difficult to break out of. What we want to invite are the virtuous cycle of a new job, right? Early wins, thinking about how can I make a tiny little contribution today, even if that means being quiet and just taking good notes, or listening to what the CEO says and asking more questions about their vision for the organization. And just notice some of the things that happen in this virtuous cycle, right? Increased credibility, supportive alliances, good decisions. We're building effective relationships. We're informed about the vision and strategy from that research we did. And that can lead to things like focused learning, effective relationship building. All of those things that we've talked about can lead to this circle of opportunity for us to really be engaged very quickly. And you might be able to recognize, if you think about it, either in your current organization, or if you haven't been there very long, maybe an organization you were with at some point, you can probably almost give me a name of someone that you've seen in the vicious cycle and someone that you've seen in the virtuous cycle. You might have never you may have never seen it expressed this clearly before, but there is a clear result for the ineffective relationship building and inadequate learning versus effective relationship building and focused learning, and how these two cycles very quickly get started. And once they're rolling, they usually are very hard to break out of either way, right? So if we do that focused learning and effective relationship building, it's going to be a good news, virtuous cycle for us from there on out. Okay, mistakes happen in new jobs, and I want to be mindful here. Just take another minute so that we can get to some questions. Try to avoid some of these mistakes, being late or absent, overstepping our boundaries, mindful of kind of the left and right limits of our new job, forgetting to ask questions or not asking questions, using phrases like, yeah, I know. No, you don't. Not yet. You might, but not yet in this new opportunity. Asking lots of questions, right? First, we want to make sure we show this adaptability and not just say, well, the way we used to do it was this way, and I think that's what we should do for the rest of this project. Sticking with what you know can be a huge mistake. And of course, not being open to feedback. There's that theme again of kind of this flexibility and openness when we start a new opportunity. Just some final thoughts here before we move into a little Q&A. I wanted to share this quote from E. Cummings here. It takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. Right? So we can feel that fear in a new job, know that it's there, honor it, but realize that with some preparation and some commitment to being open and flexible and building new relationships, even if the job doesn't go perfectly, as it didn't for that client I mentioned who only stayed at a very nice large firm with a nice salary for 8 months, but they left because they just said, no, it's not for me, right? This culture is not for me. We want to build our relationships, stay organized, being proactive and taking that initiative. These are kind of the keys to success in finding those new opportunities and those new jobs. Let me pivot quickly to our Q&A box. Welcome as many of those as possible. Let's see here.
So Adam, I haven't seen any questions pop in yet, but okay. I have two I figure we could use to get us started.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead, sir.
So the slide you did on about connecting with your horizontal peers. Yeah. Any tips or ways to ease that barrier now that we're in more of a hybrid or a fully remote workplace environments, or you might be, or even like where there's a geographical, like you might be the only one in like Austin, Texas, but everyone else is in somewhere like near Detroit or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Scott. The word that comes to mind, and the word that's been kind of tossed around recently in this space, is how much intentionality has to come with building relationships with our peers. Gone are the days in most situations of kind of running into someone in the hallway, seeing them at the coffee bar or the sandwich shop. As companies become more and more fully remote, we need to commit to being intentional about building relationships and really not being afraid to show our intention to do that. It can be as clear as, Scott, I'd love to set aside an hour for us just to get to know each other. That's why I'm emailing you, to get to know you. And we can prep for that by, oh my gosh, just do any Google on kind of, questions to ask a new colleague, and you'll get lots and lots and lots and lots of good ideas. And be ready with some great questions to have a nice conversation about, how long have you been here? What do you think is the hardest part about working here? What's the most challenging project you've worked on so far? What's the easiest thing that you've had to do so far? What are the things I should watch out for? All of those things to create an intentional environment of getting to know each other. And I saw Dave chimed in with kind of like, or even different time zones. Same idea, right? Setting aside that time. It might be later in the evening for you, super early in the morning. It does take some effort. It's not as elementary or as organic as it used to be when we were largely in the same physical spaces. So I hope that's helpful, Scott. It's a very intentional move, and that can feel a little awkward, especially for those of us, I'll say of a certain age and point in our career where we have such a clear pattern in our mind of how it used to work. Like, you'd go to an office and you get to know the people there, and they work in the cubicle next to you, or they you went to the auditorium for the town hall and you sat next to them. All the things that don't necessarily take place anymore. It's okay to be intentional about reaching out and meeting someone. We have license to do that now as professionals in a largely remote work environment, to reach out and say, I just want to get to know you. That's all this is for.
Excellent. Yeah, no, those are great tips. And then I think while we wait for a few more to trickle in, I don't want to segue too much from the topic, but a lot of this was tips, for your first day, week, months. Any really, and maybe this is a whole new webinar, but any high level things for once you got that new job and you're sort of in your final 2 weeks and you give your 2 weeks notice of things to do or not do?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm kind of on the very early end, or the other side of the coin, where we're I can offer a few things, and these are based off of mistakes I've seen made by clients who are making a transition. Do your best to check any unfounded commitment or obligation you have to an organization. Meaning, sometimes I hear people say, well, I couldn't imagine leaving without giving them at least 2 months notice. That would be a huge mistake. That creates a lame duck period of 59 days after you've announced it. And then a month later, everyone's kind of like, what are you still doing here? Scott, I thought you were leaving. And you have to kind of tell them again, oh, I am, but I stayed. I actually told them 2 months in advance. 2 weeks is the international standard. It is absolutely acceptable, barring any contractual requirements. There are very few, but most contracts are simply at-will employment, meaning 2 weeks is more than enough. And for those of you who have had this conversation, you might even find that 2 weeks feels long after sharing the news. After, at the end of the second week, you'll be kind of twiddling your thumbs. Your desk will be cleared. You'll have, taken anything that you need with you. and have packed your stuff up. What I've seen in more contemporary organizations are if someone resigns, typically the organization will say, let's actually shorten that. We'll pay you for 2 more weeks, but just finish up in the next week and then depart. Because the company wants to move on to find a replacement for that person without sort of this extended period. So, yeah, that's what I'd offer there, Scott. It's a 2-week transition, and as you go out the door, I'm a big proponent, and this is, in my opinion, I wouldn't say this is an industry standard. It is also okay to take a look around and within the bounds of the legal, contractual confines that you're operating within, it's okay to take materials with you and leverage those in the future to say this is part of the intellectual property I've created, or this is part of the concept I've created. I saw a question from Zaki here. Do you offer any courses for service members transitioning from the military? I don't, Zaki. That's not something that I don't offer courses in that. That is a demographic that I do quite a bit of coaching in. It's come born out of my own personal experience transitioning out of the Army to the civilian workforce. And if I can recommend one book in that space that was very helpful for me, it's just called Interviewing for Military Transitions. And it talks about how to build civilian language around your military work so that you can accurately describe what you've been doing without using words like squadron or platoon or brigade or any words that will not translate well. And we can make it sound like something like, manage the technical equipment for a defense organization of over 1,000 people, right? And that would be the Brigade S6, right? So it's military speak to what we actually need to convey. So hope that's helpful, Zach. Check out that book, and happy to connect with you. You see my email on the screen there if you have further questions on the transitioning from the military space. It's an additional layer of complexity in addition to what we talked about today. Other questions, comments? Let's scroll through here.
I think that's all of them, Adam.
Perfect. It's been my pleasure again, Scott. I hope that everyone got a little something out of this, and maybe there's just 1 or 2 tips or tricks they can take with them into their next job change and make it a little bit smoother and a little more exciting for them. So thanks for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And no, I think it was great. I think hopefully, everyone got something they can get out of it. Before we end, just a quick programming note for our upcoming webinar schedule. Next Tuesday, so on the 28th at 9 a.m., we'll have our next Standards Activities Board webinar from our Data Compression Standards Committee. And the next webinar from this series, the Build Your Career webinar series, will be on March 16th. The topic will be Present with Impact by Roger Granis. You'll be able to register for both of those webinars and some of our more recent webinars that are on demand with the link you receive in tomorrow's email, again, along with the slides and recording of the webinar. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for attending. Adam, thank you for joining us again and your great insights with us. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.